Hello and welcome to another edition of The Cube. For my birthday last year, a number of people from my email news group got together and bought me a theremin. And they turned up with it at a birthday gig and expected me to play it. Luckily, the song we chose to do was, in fact, Crazy Horses. Now, Crazy Horses isn't a particularly difficult song to play on a theremin. We did that and we got away with it quite well. What you basically have to do playing the theremin is you basically find a note, find other notes, and eventually you get round to putting them together into some sort of melody. One of my problems is my intonation isn't very good. And what I mean by that is, when I hear a note or have a note in my head, I find it difficult to pitch it exactly so that it's, properly in tune. I have that problem with my singing, and a few people have noticed it and sort of remarked on it sort of quite regularly. But luckily there's a way around that with the theremin, and that's a technique called a vibrato. Now, the reason that works is, if you watch my hand, the shape, right, it goes from there, those two quite different notes. Now, as long as the note you're going for, this is what I reckon, as long as the note you're going for is somewhere in the middle of those two, then at least for part of the time, during the shaking of the hand, the note's going to be actually perfectly in tune. I was only 9 when I decided I was going to be a pop star. And what I found a bit discouraging really was the fact that I used to go and buy all these pop records I really liked. And I remember playing them a lot and getting really upset because I sort of knew that I'd never be able to do that. And I didn't know how I was going to sort of make any progress. And then what happened was my sister bought this Bob Dylan record. I remember listening to that record and getting very, very excited, thinking, well, that's easy. I can do that.
At first I was afraid, I was petrified. Kept thinking I could never live without you by my side. But I spent so many nights thinking how you done me wrong, and I grew strong. And I learned how to get along, and now you're back from outer space. I just walked in to find you there with that sad look upon your face. I should have seen that stupid lost, should have made you leave that key. If I'd have thought for just 1 second, you'd be back to bother me. Hey, now go, oh, got to go. Just turn around now, 'cause you ain't welcome anymore. But you're the one who's back to hurt me with goodbye. Should I crumble? Did you think I'd break down and die? Oh, no, no, I will survive. Oh, no, as long as I know how to love, I know I'll stay alive. I got all my life to live, and I got all my love to give, and I'll survive. I will survive. Hey, hey. All the strength I had not to fall apart. Kept trying to hide. heart to mend the pieces of my broken heart. But I spent so many nights just feeling sorry for myself. I used to cry, but now I hold my head up high. You see me, somebody new. I'm not a chained up little person still in love with you. And so you feel like dropping in, and you expect me to be free. And I'm saving all my loving for someone who's loving me. Join my door, look out the door, turn around now, 'cause you ain't welcome anymore. But you're the one who's tried to hurt me with goodbye. See the guy crumble, see the guy break down and die. Oh, none of that, I will survive. Oh, as long as I know how to love, I know I'll stay alive. I got all my life to live, and I got all my love to give, and I'll survive. I will survive. Hey, hey.
I was actually 16 years old before I was allowed to have a guitar. And the reason for that is that my mum didn't think that I'd be any good at being a pop star, and so she wouldn't let me have a guitar. And it wasn't until I was big enough to say, you try and stop me having a guitar, that I was actually allowed to have one. And by that time I wanted to play guitar really, really badly. So I ran out and bought that book, Play in a Day, by Bert Whedon, which is good, and you do learn to play in a day. The problem is, what you learn to play is Bobby Shafto. I learned the chords in a day, and really by the next day or so, I was sort of like jazzing it up and doing it in my own way. Hey, Bobby Shafto's gonna sing, so the goes on his name. You'll come back and marry me, Bobby Shafto. And Bobby Shafto's golden hair, and coming back his yellow hair. He's my love forevermore, Bobby Shafto. Bit like that, really. Just a start. It was a good start for me because right at that early stage I was developing this technique, which was letting the fingers play whatever chords came into their minds and then just adjusting the voice to fit the chords. And it's good because you actually come out with some quite interesting melody lines. And one of the tricks I found that you could do was, if when you'd done that you changed the words, nobody'd ever spot that it was originally Bobby Shafto. One of the problems that most people are going to have to confront at some stage in their careers is getting rid of the rubbish musician in their group. It happens to most groups. Very few groups actually form and stay together. There's usually one person that doesn't fit and doesn't work because they're not very good. There's a lot of different ways of getting rid of the rubbish member of the band. Often bands get managers, and the manager does the job for them. But I was talking to a lot of bands, and what I discovered was the most commonly used technique was to split the band up and then reform without the rubbish member. And this happens all the time, and seems to be the most compassionate way of getting rid of the useless player. In my case, I wasn't allowed to join any of the bands when I was at school because the bands were quite clever, and realised that if I did join them, they would probably encounter that particular problem very soon. And one of the ways that they avoided that was by not having me join the band at all. So what I did in the end was I formed a duo with a very, very brilliant musician, Wild Willie Barrett. And we called the duo John Otway and Wild Willie Barrett. This in the end was very frustrating for Willie because he appreciated that He couldn't just split up and then reform John Otway and Wild Willie Barrett again without John Otway. And I think it got him very frustrated. I know one time after we split up and he didn't want to reform again, I left my guitars around his house and he recorded this track called I Did It Otway, and he thought that would actually do the trick. But it didn't, and we did end up getting back together again. But the frustrations did continue. So much so that in the end, Willie penned this song called Give It Headbutts. Used me as an instrument. Got some of his frustrations out that in that sort of way. And we eventually split up, for good, pretty soon afterwards.
Little number called I Give It Headbutts. Fast going. Ow! Went downtown for a cup of tea and I saw two skinheads looking at me. I'll give them headbutts. I'll give them headbutts. I'll give them headbutts. I'll give it headbutts. Come on, Otway. Ow! Walking on the beach in a 4-tank gale and I saw 3 hippies saving a whale. I hate bleeding hippies, so I'll give them headbutts. I'll give it headbutts. I'll give it headbutts. Come on, Otway. Went to see Mum. She was drinking gin, but it was my old man's gin, so I kicked her in. I'll give her headbutts. I'll give it headbutts. I'll give it headbutts. Come on, Otway. I'll give it headbutts. Lots of people in a line waiting for a number 9. Well, not me, I don't. I'll walk right up to the front.
Excuse me, you jump in the queue?
Now I'm butting in. Went to the doctors for a pill.
What was that? Feeling ill?
No, I've got an headache. Got an headache. Too many headbutts. Too many headbutts. Saw a band called Shaking Spear. I gave a singer the old King Lear. Where hast thou been? He spat. I went, oi, mate, stitch that. I'll give him headbutts. Give him headbutts. Give him headbutts. Give it headbutts. I'll give it headbutts. Come on. Got involved in a head-on collision with a tanker driver that wondered what hit him. I went through my windscreen. Through his windscreen. There might have been another one in between. And I'll give him a headbutt. I'll give it headbutts. I'll give it headbutts. I'll give it headbutts. I'll give it headbutts. Come on, another verse. Met this fella really into sport, 5th Dan karate, you know the sort.
George, you give him headbutts?
Yeah. Just like that. I'll give him headbutts. I'll give him headbutts. Whistle. I'll give him headbutts. I'll give him headbutts. Come on, give him headbutts. Good night.